Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternities review, reaction, rewatch of the MCU Phase 4 Part 2. I know it's a mouthful, but this is part of the series of videos where I rewatch movies from or TV shows from the MCU, and I'll give my thoughts before I watch the movie, and then I'll go watch it, then I'll come back and I'll give my thoughts after watching the movie. And I am up to Phase 4, or more precise, the second half of Phase 4. So I had already covered the first 7 projects of Phase 4 in a different video. In this video, I'm covering the next 7 projects. So as I mentioned, I'm covering the movies and the Disney Plus shows, but I'm not covering the specials like the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, Werewolf by Night, or I Am Groot. I'm just not covering those. I'm just not. That's just all there is to it. So in this video, I'm covering the second half of Phase 4. Covering the projects Spider-Man No Way Home, Moon Knight, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Miss Marvel, Thor, Love and Thunder, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, and Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. So as I mentioned before when I covered Part 1, when I cover the Disney Plus show, I'm not going to watch the entire show because I'm not made of time. I'm just going to watch the last 2 episodes of each show or each season, which is around the movie length. And so I'll watch it and come back and see what I'm saying. So we are now to Part 2, the second half of Phase 4. In my Part 1, I did talk about Phase 4 and how I don't think it's as bad as everyone else seems to do. It seems to be a good movie, bad movie kind of situation, or at least that's how it was with the first part. Not really, actually. There were a lot of middlings or in-betweens, or a couple good ones followed by middling. I don't know. But anyway, let's just skip the preamble and go ahead and get started with getting into the movie. So as I said, I am starting with Spider-Man No Way Home. So this will be a nice video. It's kind of similar to when I did Phase 3 Part 2, because I believe I kicked off that video with Captain America Civil War, which is a movie everyone else loves that I did not like so much. And here we are again. Spider-Man No Way Home, which is a movie almost everyone and their mother would say is easily the best project from Phase 4 of the MCU, and I disagree. I would probably be as bold to say that this is the most overrated movie of the MCU. I don't think this movie's terrible. I probably would even go as far to say that it's not as bad as Captain America Civil War or Avengers Infinity War, 2 movies that everyone else loves that I do not like so much. So there's like 3 of the movies that everyone else loves that I don't like so much, and this is the third. I think it's not as bad as those 2, or at least I don't have as many issues with it from memory. We'll see after I rewatch it. But here's the thing, and this is what I think separates me from a lot of people that love this movie, because a lot of people that love this movie are huge Spider-Man fans, and a lot of people say, God, this is so gratifying as a Spider-Man fan. I'm not a Spider-Man fan. I love Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I loved Spider-Man Homecoming. It's one of my favorite movies of the MCU. Far From Home wasn't quite as good as Homecoming, but I still liked it a lot. No Way Home is probably my least favorite of the 3, if I'm being honest. And here's the thing. Here's the reason why. It's because I love Spider-Man in the MCU. I don't love Spider-Man in general. And more specifically, to get more to the point, head on, straight to the point, I don't like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and I definitely don't like the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. I was never a fan of them. See, a lot of people, with the first Spider-Man come out in what, like 2000 or 2001? Maybe it was 2002. It was something like that. And so a lot of people will come, oh, I remember watching that as a kid. I grew up on it. I saw it when I was 5 years old, and I grew up and I loved the Spider-Man, and it sort of grew as a kid, so it's my childhood movie. I was 22 when I saw it, and I should recorrect, I was 22 when it was released. I don't know if I saw it the year it was released. So, I didn't like any Spider-Man pre-Tom Holland. As I said, I loved Homecoming, and I loved Tom Holland as Spider-Man, but I had no love for Spider-Man previous to Tom Holland. And so this movie just seems like nostalgia baiting. It's member berries. And that's a funny thing, because I remember watching a lot of reviews for this film from people who loved it, saying, oh, it's not just member berries, it's not just nostalgia baiting, they do something original with the plot. And I remember thinking, no, it is just nostalgia baiting. It totally is. Now, here's the thing. I don't totally hate this movie, as I said, because I love Zendaya as MJ. I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I love Doctor Strange. So basically, I love this movie up until they started introducing all the characters from the other movies, especially when they got to the other Spider-Mans. Everyone else was like, oh my god, it's Tom Holland, it's freaking Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. And I was like, I hate those movies. I don't care. And so and then it just got up its own ass with nostalgia. Like, this is where I completely disagree with everyone else who thinks this movie is not nostalgia baiting. I think it absolutely 1000% is. And also, another big fight I got with my sister, who loves this movie, is that we're into spoilers. Now we're watching this. Yeah, this is the spoilers. It should be granted we're giving spoilers away for everything. I hated Aunt May dying. Like, I hated that scene with a passion. I remember my sister loved it. I hated it. Especially, didn't she say, like, the great responsibility, with great power comes great responsibility line? When she said that, I, like, cringed so hard. I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like, how many times do we have to hear that damn thing? And it was a good character. Like, I was so pissed off. I was so pissed off when they killed this character. It was a good character. I think it was a cheap shot, in my opinion, and I think it was completely unnecessary. And yeah, I've gotten into fights with my sister around this one who loved it and thought it was amazing. I hated it. I hated it with a passion. So anyway, we'll see if my opinion will change in this recent. Now, I had the option of watching the extended version, but I think I decided not to. I want to see, because I hadn't seen this film since it first came out in the theater, so I want to see the original theatrical film for now in order to judge it for this video. So I didn't even know there was an extended version, but apparently there is. But anyway, we'll see what I think about all the other characters from the other movies and the Aunt May scene. Maybe I won't mind it on the second watch. So I'll go watch it right now. I'll come back and see how I feel. Okay, just got back from watching Spider-Man No Way Home, and when did they decide that the trilogy would be the Home Trilogy, where they always have to have the word home in the title? Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home. In fact, I think I sometimes get Far From Home and No Way Home mixed up. Anyway, I'm very torn on this film. Because there's so much I like about it, and a few things that just nag me about this film. I stand by my statement that it is the most overrated film, or maybe I would change that slightly to say one of the most overrated films in the MCU. Maybe Civil War is more overrated, maybe Infinity War is overrated. I would have to think about that longer, but it's definitely one of the most overrated films in the MCU. Certainly the most overrated film of Phase 4, I will say that easily. So, do I stand by my stance that it's nostalgia baiting? Yeah, absolutely. Maybe it wasn't quite as horrendous, certainly not as bad as Star Trek Picard Season 3, but it is pretty bad in my opinion. Now, I think I was really liked this movie in the first half. And I wouldn't say I hated the second half, so I think it would probably be inaccurate to say that it started to go downhill in the second half, because there's still things I do like about the second half. But I will say that I think maybe it's accurate to say it went downhill in the second half, because there were more things that I didn't like. So, other than the nostalgia baiting, I don't know, the whole plot of... I remember in the theater, too, when Spider-Man stole the that little box from Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange just wanted to send everyone back to their own universe in order to save their universe. And Spider-Man, fought Doctor Strange in the mirror reality, or whatever they called that. I don't want to say mirror universe, because that makes me think of Star Trek. I can't remember what they called the mirror land, or whatever it was. I remember when I first saw this in the theater, rooting for Doctor Strange. And I kind of felt the same way. I felt like Spider-Man was in the wrong. Now, I know they tried to play this theme where Aunt May was guilting Peter Parker into helping Norman Osborn, and that he felt guilty for, he promised Norman Osborn, "Oh, I'm going to help you. And then he felt guilty when Doctor Strange is like, well, I'm just going to kill them all because that's what needs to be done to save the multiverse. But you know what? Honestly, I think Peter Parker should have just gotten over it. And I think all of the mayhem that happened in the rest of the film, including Aunt May's death, it's kind of on him for not just letting Doctor Strange do his thing. And the fact that at the end of the film that he has to have everyone, forget who he is, that's also his fault. He should have just let Doctor Strange do it. Now, I know that's not the message that the movie wants to tell you. The message wants to say, oh no, Peter was doing the right thing, and he was right to do that because he was helping them instead of hurting them, and he made up these magical potions to make them good guys all of a sudden, which that seemed very fantastical to me. It breached the limits of my suspension of disbelief that they were able to come up with these magic good guy potions for each of these bad characters. And is it supposed to be implied that they're not going to die when they return to the universe because they got the good guy potions? Because I don't think that was ever implicitly stated. So what difference does it make that But let's assume, even though the movie did a bad job of explaining this, let's assume that means their lives will be spared because they've now seen the light. Yeah, so those five guys are saved, but the entire universe was put at risk of destruction, and Aunt May died, and all this other, carnage. So I still kind of side with Doctor Strange, and I think Spider-Man was wrong for not listening to him in the first place. Also, there is a bit of... I talked about the second half of the film, but there's actually a bit of a contrivance in the first half of the film that actually really bothers me, is when Peter Parker goes to Doctor Strange and asks him to do the spell. It was actually Doctor Strange's idea to make it so everyone forgets that he's Peter Parker. Why does Doctor Strange, like in the second half of the movie, Doctor Strange act like he's, the protector of everything, and we shouldn't do reckless things, but he's really incredibly reckless in this first half of the film. He comes up with this idea that Wong warns him is dangerous, and he's like, I don't care, I want to fucking do it anyway. Why? Like, what incentive does he have? I know he's friends with Peter Parker, which I think is a little bit overstated in this film. They didn't know each other that well from Infinity War, but let's set that aside and say that they are good friends. It still doesn't seem like he has such strong incentive. And also, the moment where he goes to set the spell and, Peter Parker keeps saying, oh yeah, make it so this person doesn't forget. Oh, make it so, MJ doesn't forget. Make it so Ned doesn't forget. Make it so... And Dr. Strange is like, stop talking, you're fucking up the spell. Here's a thought. Why didn't Doctor Strange get all these details and ask, Peter Parker for all the correct details before he just went ahead and started casting the spell? So, because hear me out. He immediately goes to start casting the spell. He's like, he starts it immediately without talking it through with Peter Parker. That seemed like he's not only reckless but a terrible wizard. Really, it seems like he's blaming Peter Parker for everything and saying, stop talking and I'm annoyed and blah blah blah. But it's his fault. Like, he just seemed... First of all, he's doing this reckless spell that doesn't seem that necessary. And, didn't bother to talk it through with Peter Parker before casting the spell so that that would get all fucked up. So it's on him, actually. So in this case, I side against Doctor Strange. He totally fucked up and blamed it all on Peter Parker. Why is he being so reckless? And then that thing that after the spell got all fucked up, they act like the only reason they were casting the spell is because he didn't get into MIT, and they asked, Peter Parker, when you went back and asked him asked them if they could let you in or whatever when you complained, what did they say? And it's like, I never actually did that. You could do that? And Doctor Strange is acting like Peter was the biggest idiot for, you came to me, your first thought was to come to a wizard to change everyone's spells. Like, but here's the thing. It's not just the MIT. I mean, the MIT thing was kind of like the cherry on top. But their entire lives, everyone that he loves, their lives are being completely ruined. MIT is just an example of that. Him going to the people. And also, I'm pretty sure that's not how college admissions work. I'm pretty sure if you get a rejection letter and you go to argue your case and be like, I shouldn't be rejected, 99% of the time that's going to fail. That is not going to be successful. They're not going to give a shit unless you have like some really, really good, strong, hard evidence to prove that they were, working off of mistaken information or misinformation by rejecting the claim, which wasn't the case here because they were saying you're too controversial, which is true. You could argue the merits of that, and maybe it's unfair of them to say that, and maybe they would be, better for the college even being controversial, but it's a fact that they were controversial, and it's a fact that MIT didn't want them because of that. I don't see why going and argue with them and changing their mind would change. So I kind of reject what this movie's trying to say there. Now, as far as the three Peter Parkers, I'm split on this. It is total fan service, and I wholeheartedly 100% disagree with anyone who says that it's not just pure nostalgia bait. But there were parts of it that worked, but there were other parts that didn't work for me. I don't know. Some things about their interactions I just found a bit cheesy, particularly when they were comparing their different villains that they fought. And, you can shoot webs from your wrist. How does that work? And all this. That's just, to me, that was just all fanboying bullshit. Like, just like, I don't really, that just was unnecessary. It was, so I didn't like any of that. But there's some, the way to work together as a team and having three different versions of Spider-Man work together to take down the villains. something about that I did like. That was cool. It was a cool action sequence, and I have to admit, the moment where Andrew Garfield saved MJ from falling to redeem himself because he failed to save his Gwen from dying, but he actually caught MJ, and then he started sort of crying because he actually was able to sort of redeem himself. I gotta admit, that brought tears to my eyes again, watching this for the second time. It did the first time as well. So yes, and that was a powerful moment, even though that was actually from the movie I said I didn't see, but as I said, I saw all the everything wrong with and all these other videos, so I feel like I've seen it and I know the details. I actually in my preamble, I mistakenly said that Electro was in the first Amazing Spider-Man. He was actually in the second one. Speaking of Amazing Spider-Man, the fact where we had the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man saying to Andrew Garfield, "No, you're amazing. Listen to me, you're amazing." I'm like, stop it. I was like cringing so hard. Please, no, don't. Get it? Because his movies were called Amazing Spider-Man. Get it. Oh my God. And Aunt May. I completely 1000% stand by my stance that I hated her death. I hated it. It angered me when they killed her off. And when she said, "With great power comes great responsibility," I can't believe that people actually defended this. I can't believe people, "Oh, no, it makes sense for a point of the plot." No! It's just shameless nostalgia baiting. How many fucking times do we need to hear a mentor to Peter Parker tell him, "With great power comes great responsibility"? And then they even point this out by having the other two Spider-Mans point this out. Oh, it makes it okay because it's just different parallel universe. No, it's actually movie studios repeating the same fucking phrase over and over again as a cheap shot to get people to, "Oh, I remember that from the other movie." It was terrible, and it makes me cringe so badly when I hear. I think they completely ruined Aunt May with this film. They did. I loved her in the first two films, and I think this film completely, totally ruined her. And then they killed her off unnecessarily and made her say that stupid line. I'm angry at this movie for doing that. That stays. But I did like the interactions with MJ and Ned through the ending of the film, and how they accidentally ended up there and being chased. I think that whole fight scene at the end was pretty suspenseful, even though I thought it was ridiculous that they're all trying to make them good. Like, I don't know. And I'm very, very mixed on the ending where Doctor Strange had to make everyone forget Peter Parker existed. Very mixed on that, because part of me loves it and part of me hates it. Part of me loves it because it was a very sort of powerful way to end the film. It was very emotional, and it sort of did get to the strength of Peter Parker's character, show some character growth, that he was able to make that huge sacrifice. And it was very heartbreaking when he went to MJ and Ned. He promised them that he would remind them of who he is, and he went to them, and he just couldn't bring himself to do it. And kind of, you could see the acting in this was very good on, God, I'm blanking on his name now, but you know, the guy who plays the real Spider-Man in the MCU. Why am I blanking on his name? But anyway, he did an amazing acting job, because you could see on his face that he decided that they would be better off without him, and that was a powerful ending. And so that's the part of me that loved it. The part of me that hated it thinks it was kind of cheesy, and it was almost a way for Sony to reboot this so they could splinter off from the MCU, which Tom Holland. There we go. I got it. I pulled it finally. Anyway, so they could. Sony could, if they wanted to, could splinter from the MCU and do their own thing with Tom Holland, which I hope never happens. And if it does, I probably won't watch it, because fuck Sony Spider-Man films. Just fuck them. I have no interest in them whatsoever. Zero. I'm not watching Mobius or Venom or any of that bullshit, or Madam Web. I might watch that one out of curiosity, but nothing to do with Spider-Man, and I have no delusions it's going to be good. But anyway, screw all that. There's cheesy, very transparent cash grabs attempts to milk money off of the certain rights that they happen to own, and are too fucking selfish to give up. If they ever splinter off from the MCU, I'm not watching. I don't care how good people tell me the movies. I refuse to participate. But so it makes me feel like they are not necessarily like they know they're going to do that, but they're preparing for that eventuality. That's part of it. The other part is, I don't know, it just annoys me because it erases all the progress that they made with Peter Parker and MJ in the last two films, which I think they built up this beautiful, this really great, I think one of the best relationships in fiction, period. Like, oh God, I just love Zendaya. She's just so good in that role, and I love the character of MJ, and I think her relationship with Peter Parker was just so great. It's definitely my favorite part of Far From Home. Easily, it's what makes me like that movie so much. And I liked it in this film as well until they ruined it. And so that's the other thing that really upsets me, is that they're erasing that relationship. So if maybe they will abandon it, but if they don't abandon it, then they'll have to rebuild it and start from scratch, which is kind of like what they did with Gamora in Endgame, and that fucking annoyed me as well. And they did eventually abandon her relationship with Star-Lord. So who knows if they will rebuild it here with Peter Parker, and that just annoys me. I think that's a cheap writing trick because they want Peter Parker to be single again. And so that annoys the fuck out of me as well. And it just seems like, kind of like a lame way. And also there's all sorts of logistical issues. There's all sorts of logic problems when we get into how come everyone still knows who Spider-Man is and they don't remember Peter Parker. And there's so many that I don't even want to get to. Like, that spell actually makes no logical sense. And they showed him making a cloth spider suit, but what happened to his Iron Man suit? Did it just disappear when Doctor Strange did the spell? Did this Peter Parker say, oh, well, it doesn't exist, I'll throw it away? But people still remember who Spider-Man is. So how does that work exactly? How would, for example, Happy and other people involved who's with Spider-Man and Peter Parker simultaneously, they remember their interactions with Spider-Man, but not their interactions with Peter Parker, yet they're interchangeable? It would be like having half of it. Like, and even that, like, why would the suit disappear? Where would it go? Why would he get rid of it? I don't know. That part of it seemed to me to be a Sony thing, being like, oh yeah, let's get rid of this Marvel. And by the way, there's a lot of people who are bitching about that. Oh, it's just making him like Iron Man. It's stupid that he has this suit. I love the fucking suit. Shut the fuck up. It's much better than... I'm sorry. I'm going to be this blunt. It's much better than that bullshit they did in those Sony Spider-Man films. I'm all in on Avengers MCU Spider-Man. If you take this shit away, it pisses me off. So this is just my humble opinion. And this is why I didn't like this film that much. So I was torn after I just watched this film if I was going to give it a 7 or an 8, because, believe it or not, because I know I spent a lot of time complaining about this film, but that's mainly because everyone else holds it in such high pedestal. I don't really need to point out all the positives that I like, because everyone else is doing it for me, but no one's pointing out the negatives that bother me. But there are a lot of things that I do like that I love about this film. As I said, the Zendaya Peter Parker's at the top of that list, but also the Doctor Strange stuff that I fucking loved, and even some of the interactions with the different Spider-Man. Some of it, like not all of it. And some of the, the character growth they did with Peter Parker, I think works, and it was an emotional film. Good action sequences. But getting into the nitty-gritty of all the complaints and everything that bothered me about this film has made me decide that I will in fact give this film a 7, very good, 7 out of 10, because yes, it is a really good film in some regards, but there's just too many flaws with it, too many things that bother me, too many logic issues with it, and a lot of nostalgia. A lot of it was done for plot contrivance, and a lot of it was done for nostalgia baiting. A lot. It was one of the worst. I can't believe people were like, oh, there's no nostalgia baiting. It's almost all nostalgia baiting. Or at least there's a lot of it. And it got too heavy for me at times. And again, I might be biased because I don't like those other films. Maybe if they were nostalgia baiting me with some stuff I actually had nostalgia for, maybe I would feel different. But I have zero nostalgia for those other Spider-Man films. And I just want them to focus on the MCU in the future and Avengers stuff. I don't care about those previous Spider-Man iterations. And that's the problem. Like, the first half of the film felt more like an MCU film, and the second half felt like they're going backwards to the Sony Spider-Man crap that I don't like. But that is just me. Also, I forgot to mention that America Chavez was supposed to be in this film, and I wish she was. I think that would have been... I would have loved to have her in this film. I hope we do see that character again. I'm sure we will. But it would have been great to have her in this film. But that's when, before the pandemic hit, because originally Multiverse of Madness was supposed to come out before this film, but then... because of the pandemic, they rearranged, and Sony was being stubborn, refusing to move back No Way Home, but Marvel had already moved back Multiverse, so they had to stick with the new continuity and switch it around so that this came first, and then the Multiverse. Because then they mentioned Spider-Man and Multiverse of Madness, and they had to take America Chavez out of this movie because she hadn't been introduced yet, which is a shame. But, pandemics happen, nothing really you can do about it. And, well, Sony couldn't have been stubborn, but Sony's going to Sony, so whatever, you got to do what you got to do. And it's funny because when this film first came out, I kind of was somewhat interested to see it, but to me it was like an appetizer before I get to Multiverse of Madness. That was the movie I was really, really looking forward to. That was the one I really, really wanted to see, and this was sort of to whet my appetite before I got to that, which is, most people would think the other way around, that they were really, really looking forward to this film, and Multiverse was kind of an afterthought. And, of course, after they saw those films, everyone was saying that this film was way better and way superior. I like Multiverse of Madness better than this film, but we'll see how I feel when I watch it again. But we're not up to that movie yet right now. Next MCU project I will cover is Moon Knight. So, getting into Moon Knight, this, I remember liking this show. I thought it was pretty good, so I'm only going to watch the second two last episodes, the penultimate and the final episode of Moon Knight. I was very tempted to change my mind on this and watch the first two episodes instead, but I'm not going to break format. I'm going to stick with my format of just watching the final two episodes, because it would be interesting to watch the final two episodes. I remember, because there's moments throughout the show that I really liked, like the character of, I can't remember her name, but Moon Knight's love-it or ex-wife or whatever, she was very good in this as well. And I remember the finale being kind of lackluster and relying too much on his Marvel-isms, and so I do think, from memory, the earlier episodes were better, but I also remember there being parts of episode 5, the penultimate episode, that were amazing, and this is one of those groundbreaking, international assassin-esque episodes that are really, take risks and do something really weird, and so I'm kind of eager to watch it again. I can't remember, I think I think I really liked this episode, but I'm not sure if I loved it. But we'll see how I feel when I watch it again. So I am eager to watch it and maybe reevaluate the finale. And it would be interesting to see the finale out of context without seeing the first half of the season. Now, Oscar Isaac did some of the best acting in this. And I think there were things about the finale I did like. I don't think I completely hated it. I remember, but for the first couple episodes, I was on track to love Moon Knight and think it's the best thing ever, but it did kind of fizzle out towards the end, but not in a way that made it totally suck. It still made it a strong show. So, I'm going to go ahead and watch Moon Knight, come back here, and give some of my thoughts after I watch it. Alright, so just got back from watching the last 2 episodes of Moon Knight, and yeah, I do have to rely a lot on my memory of the first 4 episodes to remember how good it was. Although I remember there was this cheesy part where the Council of Gods or whatever were being obtuse. And I can't remember exactly. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember that they were being stupid and not listening and just judging Khonshu unfairly. But I wouldn't say these last 2 episodes sucked. As particularly episode 5 was actually quite good. Actually, it might have been one of the stronger, possibly the strongest episode of the whole show, because it gives you the whole backstory of Steven and Mark, and how Mark made up Steven, and the tragedy of his abusive mother, that he was in an accident with his younger brother who died, and his mother blamed him for his brother's death and abused him. And that's what caused him to split a personality, where he created Steven to be this the happy version of himself that he couldn't have, someone who was shielded from the fact that his mother was abusive, and then eventually shielded from the fact that his mother died. And I do remember the first couple episodes. Steven was constantly calling his mother and constantly talking to her, and clearly that wasn't her. Now, it begs the question of who he was talking to. Was it just an answering machine, some random place, or was there someone actually posing as his mother? And it's also interesting, they said that that only happened 2 months ago, but yet at the start of the show, Steven seemed to have a whole life. He had a whole apartment. He had people who knew who he was. He worked at the museum. Was he able to set all that up in 2 months? And how did he get all the IDs and birth certificates and all this stuff that you would need to have in his name? I don't know. There's details just like this never revealed, but I will say I thought it was clever that the show opened up with Steven in the first couple episodes. In fact, you only saw from Steven's perspective, and when he blacked out, when Mark took over, he would black out, and what we saw on screen was just it would black out and jump back to Steven, so he would jump into places. That being said, I remember really liking Moon Knight, the first 4 episodes, that is, because Oscar Isaac does an amazing job, and the exploration of his psyche that was in episode 5 was amazing. I remember I liked the character of his ex-wife. I can't remember her name, but she was really cool. I only just now saw her in the finale, where they made her like a different kind of superhero. I suppose she's a superhero in the comics. I don't know, but where she became the avatar of the hippo. I can't remember the hippo, her name. But anyway, yeah, she was really good. Like, I really liked this character, and I remember the episode where it was kind of like Indiana Jones thing when they went on an adventure together. I remember that episode being really good and really liking her character. I like the actress who plays her. She looks really familiar. I don't know if I've seen her in anything, though. But yeah, this so that really worked, and it was cool seeing them in the finale. All right, Layla. That's the character's name, and the actress's name is May Kalamaui something. And what else was she in? Nothing else I've seen. So I don't know why she looks familiar to me. It's just from the show. But anyway, she did, yeah, whoever she is, she did a really good job in this show. And I really liked the character, so that was a huge plus. Ethan Hawke, I think, did a really good job as well as the villain. Yeah, so I was sold on that. It's just when they had like the big gods and the alligator god and the bird god fighting each other like huge over this, that was just too much. It's just too much. That's just, I think I was hoping for something a bit more like street level when I heard, he's the Batman, but this is not street level. This is grand mythology like Thor, and I don't know, that stuff just turns me off. But I like the character, as I said, of Moon Knight himself and the psychology of it. I think, as I said, especially the way the first two episodes opened up, I thought was amazing, which is why I wanted to watch those two episodes instead of the final two. But no, I'm sticking to my format. And yeah, and so there's parts of it that I really liked, and yeah, the finale is, I was correct, it was too much. It was a bit over the top, but not all of it. Like, there are aspects of it that I liked, but I certainly did like the fifth episode, the penultimate episode, better, because that was more of the dealing with the emotional thing. But the whole thing of, the afterlife and how they have to, the heart has to be balanced by feather, and one of them actually turned to stone, and yeah, Steven turned to stone, and then they had to go back for him. Like, all that was, yeah, that was a bit too much. So it was sort of a balance of being a bit too comic booky, too over the top, and also having some good grounded character work. But anyway, yeah, so my rating for Moon Knight out of 10, I think I'm going to give it an 8. Extremely good. And this is mainly because this is what I gave it before. And part of me wanted to bring it down to a 7, but then that's just because I just watched the final 2 episodes. I think if I try to think back to the whole show and judge the whole show, and not just the final 2 episodes, I'd give it an 8, because I remember that start was really good, where it made you think, where it would blank out and Steven would be there. And I liked the switcheroo they did with Steven, making you think Steven's the main character, and then pushing it over to Mark. When they have the episode 4, when they're exploring the tomb with Layla, like, that was really good. And as I said, the aspects of episode 5 are really good when they explore his backstory and explain. It reminded me a lot, actually, of the penultimate episode of WandaVision, which I really loved, where they explain her backstory and her trauma. And here they're doing something similar, where they go and explore his backstory and his trauma, and how that how he was abused as a child, and how that affected him, and how his mother's death affected him. But you also had those silly aspects thrown in there that were just a bit over the top and hard to swallow. And then the finale went all in on those silly aspects that were over the top, but there were some good aspects of the finale. So now I'm going to go ahead and jump into the next project, which is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So I got quite a history with this one because this was the movie I was looking forward to throughout the entirety of Phase 4, because I heard of this project before Phase 4 started, and so with every project that came out, I was just really waiting for it. Like, it was hinted at a bit in WandaVision, and again, the Spider-Man No Way Home, as I mentioned, for me, that was kind of just like an appetizer to get me ready for Multiverse of Madness, because that sounded so amazing, and I was really, really looking forward to it. And when the trailer came out, not the teaser trailer they showed in Spider-Man No Way Home post-credit, like that teaser I thought was not that good. It was okay. I was like, yeah. But then when they had the full trailer come out, I thought it was amazing, and I used to watch it on repeat constantly because it looked so good, and I was so excited for it. Like, the first day that it came out, I ran to the movie theater to watch it as soon as I could, and I liked it. Now, here's the thing. My expectations were so high that it would be very nearly impossible for the movie to meet my expectations. So did it meet my expectations? Almost. Almost. Because as I said, my expectations were extremely high, and it wasn't quite as spectacular, amazing, best thing I've ever seen in my life that I was hoping it would be. But it was still a really good movie, and I think it may be my favorite project of Phase 4. I don't know. It's kind of... I'll have to watch it again, see how I feel, because it's kind of neck and neck with the WandaVision, if I remember correctly. But yeah, so I was very impressed with this film, and this is different from... The reaction of this film seemed to be very lukewarm. A lot of people didn't like it. I've heard a lot of people bitching about various things. I mean, I did a live stream like right after I saw this movie with my sister, and she agreed with me. Like, she loved this movie as well. But there was a lot of people who were complaining, oh, we don't see that many other universes. Well, so fucking what? Like, like, I don't get that was an expectation just because it was called the Multiverse of Madness. We did see several. Like, alright, so they said we got that scene where they crash into the thing and we see multiple universes, and that scene was shown in the trailers. Like, oh, that's all we get, and we just get that other universe. No, we actually got several, because then after he met with the Illuminati and all that shit, he went to a different universe and had this Strange Supreme, or whatever, the different version of Strange. So there was several different universes. Like, how many do you need, really? I don't know. I kind of get that, like, maybe I would have liked to see a bit more, but I'm not, like, disappointed that we didn't. Like, for me, it's all about, is it a good story? And I think it was a good story because I love the character of America Chavez and sort of how Doctor Strange's relationship with her grew, and how the other versions of Strange was willing to sacrifice her in order to save the universes, but this version of Strange wasn't, and chose to empower her instead. And I thought that was really well earned. I thought that was done very well. I thought his side story with getting over Christine was also really well earned and done extremely well. And if I recall, he met a different version of Christine who was in love with him, but her version of him died. And so that was a very interesting dynamic. Oh, and then the other people bitched about Wanda being the villain. That's something they kept under wraps, by the way. None of the trailers gave it away, which I loved, because I went and saw it in the theater and I was not expecting her to be the villain. So that's something that they were really good at keeping a lid on, and I think that worked. But that's another people bitched about. They were like, whoa, she went through all that character development in WandaVision, now all of a sudden she's evil. I think I talked about with this when I reviewed Phase 1, because, I explained that they showed her reading the evil book. And I've heard, some people like, oh yeah, she's just writing evil books, and now she's evil. Well, yeah, that's how the fucking Marvel Universe works. And they set it up. They made it clear that this book corrupts you. So I'm not sure what part of it you don't buy or what part of it you have a problem with. It makes complete and total sense that she's absolutely evil. Not that I was expecting that, but it makes sense. They were setting up for it, and once it was explained to me, I was like, oh yeah, they totally set up for this. I should have seen this one coming. And I think people who complains and thinks it's inconsistent with WandaVision are factually incorrect. I think it is completely and utterly consistent with WandaVision. But anyway, we go ahead and watch Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness now, and I'll come back and I'll let you know my feelings on the show after watching it. So, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So, I think I come to the conclusion that Doctor Strange, to me, is one of those rare films. I think, well, the Multiverse of Madness, I should specify, not the first Doctor Strange. But you know what film I'm talking about. Anyway, I think it's one of the rare films. I think Cloud Atlas is the only other film I can think of. Or maybe the show Maniac might be this way too. Where I believe the trailer is better than the movie. Well, relatively speaking. I'm not saying I'd rather watch the trailer than watch the movie. What I'm saying, because they're different mediums. One's like 2 minutes or 3 minutes long. The other's two hours and some long. So, what I mean is, for a trailer, comparing it to other trailers, the trailer is at like a level that's higher than the movie is compared to other movies, if you know what I'm saying, if that makes any sense. Because I remember the Multiverse of Madness trailer, and it was so good. Like, there's some like musical cues that I think were more powerful than the musical cues that were in the actual movie. And just the way it was edited, I don't know, it just got me in the feels. It's not as good as the trailer as Cloud Atlas. That's easily the best trailer in existence, and it is, relatively speaking, again, better than this movie. But anyway, the other thing I kind of forgot about this film is that the whole thing about dreams being parallel universes. Now, this is Marvel, right? They do all these, flying wizards, aliens from outer space, freaking green Hulks, and freaking giant celestials coming out the earth, and Norse gods are real, and Egyptian gods are real. So you gotta take it all, it's fantastical world, but still, that's why I will excuse it, but I think that theory is really stupid. Because I've heard that theory in real life, that, when you dream, it's a glimpse into a parallel universe. But I am sorry. Like, in this film, Wong brought that up. You mean there's a universe where I'm, like, dropping in the clouds forever? And she's like, yeah, somewhere out there. But here's the thing. I don't care how vast the multiverse is or how infinite the multiverse is. There is no universe in existence where the Smashing Pumpkins are playing a concert in my backyard. I refuse to believe that. I refuse to believe that there's any universe in the whole multiverse that where the Smashing Pumpkins are playing a concert in my backyard. Now, if you think of Marvel, you might say, well, the multiverse is infinite. But, I know this came out after this, but from Loki Season 2, spoilers for that, we know that the multiverse is not infinite because there's a certain tree and it's pretty finite. It might be vast, there might be tons of different different universes that Loki's holding together there, but it is finite. Anywho, So yeah, I do find that hard to buy, but I'm trying to like just go with it. It's a fictional film. Come on, just go with it. But anyway, um, so yeah, I really really like this movie. I think it's way better than people give it credit for. And the whole time I was watching it, I was thinking about what I said before I watched it and being like, how everyone complained about there wasn't enough parallel universes. Like, how fucking many do you need? Like, there's plenty. There's enough to make it interesting, and more importantly, there's enough to make the story work. Like, there's enough for what the story requires, and the story's really good. So I don't understand why people really fucking care. How many bad, like, it just blows my mind. Now, the other thing I didn't talk about before that I was going to mention was the Illuminati and how people are saying this is just, shameless fan service. And, that might be acceptable if it wasn't for the fact that, by and large, the same people who are saying this is fan service are the same people who are saying Spider-Man No Way Home was not fan service. And I gotta laugh at that because that thought is ludicrous. It's just ludicrous. The Spider-Man No Way Home shit was 100,000, a billion times more fan servicey than the Illuminati were. I'm sorry. I mean, it's the just anyone who would even entertain the thought that this is more fan service than Spider-Man No Way Home is one of the most outrageous, ridiculous, nonsensical statements about Marvel I've ever heard. Yeah, as I said in the preamble, the America Chavez thing worked very well for me. I think, her relationship with Doctor Strange was very well earned, and I absolutely love how it starts the film with that other version, the ponytail version of Doctor Strange, killing her in order to stop Wanda from getting the magical powers, but then at the end, she even tells Strange it's okay, you can kill me, and Strange is like, no, you got this, you have because he was observing her, and he can see that, she says she has no control over her powers, but he knows that's wrong. He gathered that, and he, instead of taking the easy way out and killing her, he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I believe in you. And that was just so heartwarming. And I think it was so well earned, too, by the way. And it made that ending where she won by getting Wanda to see just how wrong she was doing. Like, people tried to tell her earlier, your kids would not want you to do this, and she would just silence them and be like, shut up or whatever. But when she was actually confronted with her kids and saw how terrified they were of her, and then the other Wanda standing above her and sort of forgiving her, that was such a touching moment. It absolutely was, and it was so well earned. And then so Wanda, destroyed all the Darkholds everywhere and killed herself or collapsed the mountain on her. I believe she's going to come back in some form or another. I still do. I've seen clickbait articles suggesting she definitely won't, and I've seen some others suggesting she definitely will. These clickbait articles are always contradictory. I still believe that she will. But yeah, we will have to see, I guess. Anywho, yeah, I thought that was done great. There was something else I totally forgot about in my preamble before I saw the film. I forgot about another through storyline that worked very well was Doctor Strange. The thing about "Are you happy?" where she asked, at the wedding, "Are you happy?" and he said yes, and then he meets the evil Doctor Strange who says, "I lied to her and said I was happy." And you get the sense that actually holds true for him as well. That he does that. He also, thinks that. That she was that he was lying. That when he told her he was happy, but then it was brought up again, and he asked Wong that at the end of the film, and you get the sense that he actually is happy, especially after what he did for America Chavez and saved her life. So that was powerful. That was like the whole thing about him and Christine, and how he, had to let her go, and he met this other version of Christine who actually did love him, but she was from a different universe, so he had to let her go again. Like, it was I'm sorry, I thought this was a very powerful film. It's a very touching film. It was a very fascinating film. I'm sorry, I really, really, really liked this movie. I don't really get why people were so down on this, or thought it was just mediocre, or thought it was a disappointment. Well, I do get it. I've already mocked them for the stuff they say, because I completely disagree. I think this film is amazing. Now, some complaints. And it's funny because I seem to have be the only one with this complaint. Because when I saw this non-spoiler review before I saw the film that said there was some cheesy, like a really cheesy moment in the film. So when I went and saw the film, and there was a scene where Doctor Strange was fighting the evil Doctor Strange, and he was using like musical notes. He was like throwing musical notes at him. And then the evil Doctor Strange started throwing them back, and they would play like songs like dun 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 dun, and he would go dun 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 dun, and each one would make a sound. I thought that was really cheesy. I was like, oh, so that must be the cheesy moment that they were talking about in the review. But then after I saw it, I watched the spoiler review, and no, they were actually talking about like the stuff with the zombie Doctor Strange and all the arms coming out. Nothing cheesy about that. I mean, it's typical horror Sam Raimi stuff. That was awesome. I had no problem with that. I thought the musical notes thing was dumb, but no one else did. I mean, no, my sister totally disagreed with me on that one too. It doesn't seem like anyone else found the musical note thing cheesy. It was just me. I found that a bit cheesy. And also, the other thing, since we're on the topic of criticisms, or nitpicks more likely, is that the wizards at Camartage seem to be similar as the Dothraki in Game of Thrones Season 8, and such that they're able to all die and then respawn themselves. Like at the end of the film, there's like Camartage had like all those witches, and like, didn't they all die? I know that weird bull looking dude was still alive because Wanda was threatening to torture him at one stage, but it seemed like everyone else was dead. Like that one chick who came and like destroyed the Darkhold, when she came, Wong was like, "Oh, you're alive," which is the correct response because everyone looked like they all fucking died. So who are these people? Who are all the other people, all the wizards at the end of the film? Where did they come from? Did they go and recruit like 50 wizards within that short amount of time? Or did they just respawn themselves like the Dothraki? That's my question. Anyway, and did they overdo it with Wanda being super, super evil? Maybe a tad, but as I said at the start with my preamble, it's the book, and I'm totally by that. I got no issue with that. I think people who don't buy that are objectively wrong. I completely buy it, and I think that it is absolutely 100% in keeping with WandaVision. 100%, especially how they reference the kids. Getting the cats knock shit off anyway. My rating for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is a 9. Excellent. I'm not quite there with the 10, because as I said, there were some slight things with the movie, but I think it's really, really good. Probably would make my top 10 favorite MCU movies, period. Being honest, I will do that eventually, but not anytime soon. But I will. I mean, I did one already up to Phase 3, but I'm not going to do another one including Phase 4 until probably after Phase 5 is done. So you have to wait a bit for that. But anyway, yeah. So it's a great film. I think is way better than a lot of people, including the critics, give it credit for. And yeah, as I said, it will be a contender for my favorite project of Phase 4, which I will get back to at the end of the video, so you'll have to hold for that. Anyway, so next is Miss Marvel, and with this one, I'm kind of glad that I only have to watch the last 2 episodes, because, not that I hated Miss Marvel, but I didn't think it was the best thing ever. It's not something I'd want to rewatch, and it's mainly, and it's kind of mixed in. It's not like, oh, I think the last 2 episodes are better or worse than the middle episodes of the beginning episodes, because a lot of other shows I've been talking about, well, these episodes are usually better than this one. But as far as this show goes, the good and bad are mixed in throughout the entire series. Like, there's good and bad in every episode, so it doesn't really matter which 2 I watch as far as the quality goes. So I'm happy, I'm perfectly fine watching the last 2. Because, yeah, I think what the thing with Miss Marvel is the comedy really works. I really like the character of Kamala. Is it Kamala Harris is the vice president? What's her name? Kamala Khan? That's her name? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, I really like the main character, and she's such a great character, and I like her family and the comedy and all the character and the character moments just beyond the comedy. I think the character interactions were strong, and the character story was strong. But a lot of the specifics, like the plots and the action sequences and what they did with, with the show and stuff, stuff like that I don't think worked very well. A lot of the specifics. I really loved her in the Marvels, by the way, but I won't be able to get to that in this video because that's Phase 5. The Marvels, highly underrated film that gets way more hate than it deserves. But anyway, I didn't think it was amazing the other way. But anyway, off topic. Miss Marvel, yeah, so the plot line with the clandestine, if that's what they're called, was very inconsistent, and I wasn't interested in them. They weren't really explained well enough. I think they diverted to Pakistan, and that seemed like they kind of lost the plot a bit, and then the show just turned into a different plot about this going to Pakistan, and there's a secret underground there. All of a sudden, it's like that wasn't earned at all, so I wasn't interested in it. And then they resolved that plot in episode 5, and then they went back to the original plot in New York City for the final episode, where they all did act like Kevin McAllister and did a Home Alone pranks at the school. That was silly. So maybe I'm not looking forward to that part of it. That was really dumb. But I remember there were some things about the Pakistan plot I did like the flashback, which I believe will be in episode 5, where she time traveled to the past and saw her grandmother or great grandmother, whoever it was. It would have been great grandmother, I believe. But anyway, it's that stuff was good, and parts of it were good, but I mainly liked the show for the characters. So I can't even remember what rating I gave this show originally, so I'm going to go watch it now, see what I think of it, and I'll come back and let you know. Alright, back from watching Miss Marvel, and yeah, my memory of this show is pretty spot on. It was a very disconnected show that was not very... It didn't flow very well. It seemed like it couldn't decide what tone that it wanted to do, and it sort of flipped back and forth. Now, I will say, because I just watched episode 5, that it did start with this time... not a time travel. It did have some time travel in it. But it started with this flashback to her great grandmother and her story of how she met her husband and gave birth to Kamala's grandmother. And it was a very well done story. It was a very lovely story. It was wrapped up in it. It's not what I expected. And of course, it ended with her death. But that's when Kamala time traveled to the moment in order to save her own grandmother from being abandoned and realizing that she was the person who did it all along. I think that was really lovely and really touching, but it didn't really play that much into the story. Like, the backstory was very good to have. It gave us a more sort of feel for her heritage and the whole connection to the clandestines and the bangle and all that, but her time traveling there just seemed like that wasn't all that necessary. But whatever. That was all well and good. And then the storyline with the clandestines seemed to end abruptly. It all seemed to be over very fast. And how there was a portal, but they thought it was going to destroy our world, but send them back to theirs, but instead it just killed them, and it was in danger of destroying everything. But the leader of the clandestine apparently sacrificed herself to save her son, and gave all of her powers to him. I don't know. All their motivations throughout the entire show was very confusing, and I don't think it was very clear on what they wanted to do. It was going sort of back and forth. And I was thinking back to the earlier episodes where they would have a tone of being like a sort of silly teenage type film, a high school type film, where there would be like subtitles. Oh, this is the group, and they were separating all the groups of the mosque, and these are the converts, and these are the hardliners, and all that seemed very irrelevant. Like, it seemed like they didn't really have a strong direction for the show, and the fact that they had this whole subplot in Pakistan that ended with episode 5, and then they were back in America, and then they went back to the plot with the damage control. And I'm sorry, I really did not like damage control in this show. They were really cheesy and over the top, and it ended with the really stupid, as I said, Home Alone sequence with them like shooting rubber balls at them and setting traps. That being said, there were a lot of feel-good moments in this show. A lot of moments where I was like, yeah, it's mainly because of the characters. As I said, they really did a great job designing or exploring the characters of Kamala Khan and her family, and you were really invested with them, and you were invested with her best friend Bruno. And so when she got to show her powers off and grabbed the bus that was about to kill a bunch of people and save them, and everyone cheered, I wanted to get up and cheer too. It was a good moment, and I was invested in that character. If I wasn't invested in all these side characters and didn't really care much about them, I was invested in her. So the show did a really good job, and you felt her just being this fangirl who loves the comic books and all of a sudden being a superhero. You felt what that was like, and that was explored very well. And her, as I said, her heritage with her grandmother, her great grandmother who informed who she is, that was all explored very well as well. I think the script needed a lot more tightening up. They needed to get rid of the unnecessary characters and unnecessary storylines, and it should have been a shorter show. It didn't need to be 6 episodes long. And yeah, get rid of the Home Alone sequence. That was just goofy. I'm sorry, but it was. The character was really well developed, and someone who I definitely want to see more of, and I desperately want to see the Young Avengers, which would bring her back, would bring Kate Bishop back, another character I loved. It would bring back America Chavez, another character I loved. So I desperately would want to see the Young Avengers, and I just heard rumors that we're not going to get it, and I hope those rumors are bullshit. Because I really, really want to. I want to see it more than any of these other bullshit Marvel projects like Wonder Man. The fuck did I give about Wonder Man? They really need to stop going off in separate directions and stick to the characters they have. I'm sorry. That's why it's failing. Because Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 all had Avengers movies. Phase 4 did not. And that was the issue. They need to stop introducing all these new characters and focus on the ones that they have. That's why the MCU is failing in popularity. But anyway, the Marvels did that. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about the Marvels yet. Here to talk about Miss Marvel. And so my rating for Miss Marvel out of 10 is going to be... Honest, I'm torn between a 6 and a 7 on this one, but I'm going to go give it the benefit of the doubt and give it a 7. Very good. It's a weak 7 to be sure, but I think the strength of the characters and the strength of the feel-good moments and it really hold it up. But yeah, the disjointed tone and the competing plot lines and the over-the-top goofy villains, definitely hold this show back. So it wasn't my favorite show. I didn't think it was amazing, but this is a great character that I definitely want to see more of. So now it is time to move on to Thor: Love and Thunder, and I gotta be honest, not looking forward to this rewatching this film. It was a huge disappointment. I'm a huge fan of Taika Waititi. I first got into his New Zealand films when I lived in New Zealand, and so I was already a fan of his before Ragnarok came out, and I loved Ragnarok. It was one of my favorite Marvel movies, and I was really looking forward to his part 2 to Ragnarok, and it was a disappointment. The humor didn't land, and the story wasn't well constructed. I remember them having like this, the Christian Bale's the God Killer, and yet they have this scene with all these gods, and he doesn't try to kill them. Like, why would you do that? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then, I don't know, I thought the ending was... I didn't like that they killed off Jane. They made her the new Thor, and then just killed her off at the end of the film. I was very disappointed by that. And the ending where Thor ends up, looking after the other... the daughter of the God Killer or whatever... and they're Love and Thunder because Thor's Thunder and her name's Love or whatever. That was very reminiscent of Taika Waititi's films, the aspects of his earlier films that I did not like, if I'm being fair, if I'm being honest. And yeah, so, okay, I guess I'm just going to go ahead and watch this film. Maybe I'll like it better this time around. I kind of doubt it, but we'll see. Go watch Love and Thunder and come back and give my thoughts on that. Okay, just came back from Thor: Love and Thunder. So I forgot about the Guardians of the Galaxy. How Endgame ended with Thor going off with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and yet all we get is like a couple scenes for like 5-10 minutes with the Guardians, and then they're gone for the rest of the film. I think that was the most disappointing thing about the film. Why bother to end Endgame on this, hope that, Thor's going off with the Guardians of the Galaxy? Why bother to end it on that huge cliffhanger if you're not going to pay it off in any meaningful way? And of course, I do know the answer to that. The answer is Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was supposed to come out before the next Thor movie, but because of the controversy with James Gunn getting fired and rehired, that delayed it, and it got pushed back a lot longer, so it got delayed, and the Thor movie was still on track. So it was supposed to be Thor in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but instead they had to pick up where they left off for the next Thor movie, and I think because of the story that they wanted to do, it might have been Taika Waititi's idea. He didn't really want the Guardians around for the whole movie. And I think that sucks. I think that is a dumb decision. I think that they should have worked around. If you don't want the Guardians in the next Thor movie, then they should have delayed the Thor movie. I know there's probably financial reasons for them not to do that and whatnot, but I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. And I remember seeing the trailers and getting out and seeing that the Guardians were barely in it, and I'm thinking, oh, they're probably not going to be in the movie for very long. And then I did hear before I saw the movie that, oh, they're not. They're only in it for like 5-10 minutes. And I think I did like the bits with them in. I did like the camaraderie and the the jokes with them and Thor, and how they were like getting their asses kicked, but all Thor doesn't show up and saves the day, but he destroys their sacred building. Like, stuff like that was funny. But yeah, I'm disappointed. I wanted more than that. Alas. But anyway, so one thing I will say is that just now rewatching the film did make me appreciate it. Was a lot better than I remember it being. I will say that first off. So I do think I was being too hard on the film before. I think it is a lot better than I remember it being. So after I watched the film, there was 2 questions that I had that I wanted to Google. One question I'm sure I had been told before. I just didn't remember what the answer was. And that was, so at the end of the film, they go to this eternity where you can make any wish, and that Gore goes and makes the wish that, to bring his daughter back to life. So my question is, why didn't Thor wish Jane back to life? Now, apparently the answer, and I've been told this before, is a stipulation that they said about this magical wishing fountain is that only the first person who reaches it gets to make a wish. And that is obviously contrivance, so they could have Gore make his wish, but not Thor make his wish. You ever notice how their names rhyme? Gore, Thor. But anyway, and I think it's all magical BS anyways, so you can excuse that. But I didn't want them to kill Jane. I was very upset that they did. Because seeing her as the mighty Thor was awesome. I wanted to see more of the mighty Thor. But alas, yeah, I don't know. They showed her going to Valhalla in the post-credit scene. I don't know if that means that she will return in some form or not, or if that was just meant to be the tie-up, saying that she lives happily ever after in Valhalla, which I wanted to see more of her, god damn it. But anyway, maybe Natalie Portman wasn't going to do any more movies, and she just agreed to do this one. Because I know that she dropped out of doing Thor movies, which is why they did Ragnarok didn't have her in it, because she didn't want to do any more. But I think that had a lot to do with the fact that the first 2 Thor movies were so mediocre and not that good. And when Ragnarok did so well and they saw how good it was, she's like, well, shit, I want to be involved in this again. And she was, and then she got this lesser follow-up to Ragnarok. But as I said, it was a lot better than I remember it being. And the other question, did I mention what the other question I asked was Lady Sif dead or alive at the end? Because when I first saw this movie, I got the impression that she died right away. Because I've been waiting for Lady Sif to come back, and a lot of other people have been waiting for Lady Sif to come back. They're like, oh, and she's finally back, and she's in this one scene where, she lost the battle and she wants to die and go to Valhalla. Now, I mistakenly thought that she did die in that scene, but the scene cut before they really revealed it. But alas, that's actually not the case. She did in fact survive. They did show her in the final scene of the movie training Heimdall's son, so she was training the kids. Now, just now when I watched it, I was like, hey, is that Lady Sif? But I wasn't sure, because I don't really remember exactly what she looks like when she's completely healthy and in her armor. So I had to look it up online, and sure enough, that was her. That was her training. So she was just saying that leave me here to die. But I guess Thor convinced her that she shouldn't die, that she should live because she wouldn't get to Valhalla. She's like, maybe your arm would be in Valhalla, which I didn't think was a very funny joke. But that's me, and I stand by what I said before about the jokes not being as funny. Certainly not as funny as Ragnarok. I mean, there are some moments that are okay, but it wasn't nearly as funny as Ragnarok. And is there anyone in the right mind who actually found those laughing goats or the screaming goats funny? They were just annoying. Like, there was nothing funny about them. I feel like they were there to try to be funny, but anyway, and most of the Thor's like sarcasm or being silly, it came off as too silly. Like, a lot of people complained about it in Ragnarok, but I thought it was perfect in Ragnarok. I thought it was great. I thought it was funny. I thought it worked for the character. Here, I think they overdid it, and he came off as too much of a dunce. They didn't overdo it like to a ridiculous degree, but just a little bit. And one part I did like was at the start of the film when Korg was narrating, and he was telling the story about how, Thor lost all the people he loved, his mother, his father, and his brother again, and his brother again. And then he said, and then he lost this guy, and that guy, and whoever this guy is, referring to the Warriors 3. And I fucking love that. I think that was a meta thing, because the people who were wrong, who did not like Ragnarok, would often complain, they just killed off the Warriors 3. I'm like, fuck the Warriors 3. Who gives a shit about the Warriors 3? I guess comic book readers is the answer. But, I mean, these are movies. Movies are separate, and I don't give a flying rat's ass about the Warriors 3. I was kind of glad they just killed them off unceremoniously. I think that narration was kind of rubbing that in people's faces. Like, this guy and whoever that guy is, I don't even know who that guy is. So I love that. I love that so much, because fuck the Warriors 3. Anyway, who cares about it? I mean, there were faceless, nameless characters in the first two Thor movies who did nothing. I think they absolutely should get rid of them. But anyway, sorry. What else was I going to say? So I like this movie better than I thought. I think the Thor character is the one scene I did like was Star-Lord was when he was telling Thor that how he closed up his heart and wouldn't let anyone in. Thor's like, I keep everyone at arm's length, and he like pushed Star-Lord away, and how Star-Lord was saying that he feels shitty after losing Gamora, but at least he feels something. And then Thor brought that up later on and saying how he closed himself off after losing Jane, and saying that he wants to feel shitty again. And I think overall the relationship that he has with Jane throughout the film was really, really touching, like really well done. And so I underestimated that. And again, I loved Jane as the Mighty Thor. I thought she was really cool, and that was really cool seeing their dynamic. And I think the way they built the relationship slowly over time, and how she was at first very standoffish. And I like how they went back and flashed back to them actually breaking up, because we never actually got that story. We just were told in passing dialogue, oh yeah, we broke up, and that was it. But this film was more focused on her. And plus, they actually had Natalie Portman for this film, so they could actually show what happened. And so I really liked that. I thought that really worked. And I think the ending was kind of touching too with Gore. I wouldn't say he was a great villain, but he wasn't a terrible one. It was a simplistic, the sword was corrupting him, kind of similar to the book corrupting Wanda. But it does kind of make sense that they were able to change his mind at the end, because they destroyed the sword, and the sword was the corrupting source. So without the sword, he was dying, but he was no longer being corrupted, and so they could speak reason to him at this point and convince him, like, wouldn't it be better to, if you're so upset or angry about your daughter's death, why not bring her back rather than using your one wish to kill a bunch of people? Although, yeah, I don't know. I think that whole wishing thing is stupid. I think it's, only the first person can make the wish. That's rather convenient and dumb. And also, someone else, I think it was Ryan George in the pitch meeting, pointed out that when Thanos was trying to wipe out, half of the universe population, why didn't they go to this eternity thing and just wish Thanos away? That was an option. Like, Thor knew about it, and all the other gods knew about it, and Thor apparently had the key to opening it with Stormbreakers, so instead of going to Earth to attack Thanos, why didn't just go to this eternity thing? And the answer to that is so the movie could happen. Also, the answer to that is this movie came out later, so they hadn't thought of this yet. But I don't know. The whole eternity thing creates a lot of issues for me. And I stand by what I said in the preamble about Zeus and that whole scene. I hated that. Like, he had his jokes about orgies and, you're not invited to the orgy. Like, that wasn't the least bit funny. Like, I was so, like, straight-faced throughout that whole thing. And the fact that the women all fainted when they saw Thor naked. I mean, I get it, he's hot, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to get into that, but it's stupid. Well, the one thing I did find kind of funny, to be fair, is when after he flicked the Thor's disguise and all of his clothes went off and he saw the other, the mighty Jane and Valkyrie, and he was like, "Oh, flick your disguise." I was like, no, disguise coming off, because they didn't want to lose all their clothes. Like, that was funny. But that was it. Like, in the post-credit scene where, Zeus is back and he brings Hercules out and he's angry at humans for bending. I hope they never follow up on this, because that whole thing is stupid. And it's my understanding that Taika Waititi is not doing any more Thor movies or any more MCU movies, period. So I do hope that that is abandoned and we never see that again. I wonder who is going to do Thor next if he doesn't, though. I hope we don't go back to the same feelings the first two Thor movies, because those did not work. I don't even know if we need another Thor movie, really, but yeah, I mean, okay. Whatever. But so that whole Zeus thing, and the fact that they had the god killer and we don't actually see him kill any gods. See, that's the thing, that he is underutilized in this film. They just, we see him kill a god in the pre-credit scenes, before, I don't know what you call it, the very start of the movie, and then you see him, the aftermath, and we're told, not shown, we're told that he's killed a bunch of gods, and then he goes and steals all the kids away from Asgard, and then he fights with Thor, Valkyrie, and Jane, and wins, and then Thor comes back and fights him with the kids. That's it. We don't see him actually kill any fucking gods other than that first one, his origin story, which I don't think counts. So what the hell? You had this thing of all these gods who were arrogant assholes who kind of deserved to die, and you don't use gore to kill him. Instead, you waste time with stupid jokes about screaming goats. Anyway, but as I said, I was surprised at how much the character stories that I liked and how much I actually, thought the ending, and in retrospect, was actually really touching. I was just still a bit upset that Jane died. So, I'm teetering between a 7 and an 8 for this film, and God, I was hoping I would have a clear picture after talking through it what to give it. I think I do. My rating for Thor Love and Thunder out of 10 is going to be a 7. Very good. It's a strong 7, very close to an 8. As I said, I'm this close to giving it an 8. But there's too many problems. with this film. Like, as I said, I do like it a lot better, because I think before I would have given it a weak 7, teetering on a 6. Where now I'm giving it a strong 7, close to an 8, so it's different. But yeah, because the character stories really worked for me. The Jane and Thor stuff really worked. The Jane stuff was really touching, even though I really pissed off that she died. And I loved seeing the mighty Thor, that in the relationship Thor had. And oh yeah, the jokes about like the Stormbreaker being jealous of him whenever he talked about other weapons, I did find that funny. To be fair, I did. And I like the Guardian stuff. I'm just pissed off we didn't get more of it. And yeah, most of the jokes, like the Screaming Goats, didn't work for me, and Zeus and that whole thing absolutely did not work for me. So yeah, the whole thing with the eternity making a wish thing, I don't know, something about that I just don't like. So that brings it down to a 7, but as I said, a very strong 7. So yeah, it was better than I remember it being, I will say that. So, coming up next is She-Hulk. So, everyone hates the show, it seems like, everyone and their mother. I liked it. I remember when I first saw it, I was really looking forward to it. And I was doing live discussions on Darren's channel week to week. You can still check those out. And I didn't hate it as much as everyone else did. But I will say, there were issues with it. I think it was inconsistent, because at first, actually, I really liked like the first couple episodes. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, they didn't like them." I did, and it was at first it was having this theme of like, kind of like Harvey Birdman and Attorney at Law, if you'd ever saw that show, where I thought every episode would be about them doing a different court case involving like superheroes, maybe lesser known superheroes in the Marvel comics that no one's really heard of. They did do that a couple times, and I thought it would be making like a joke out of this, what a superhero would be like if in trying to be like a mundane everyday life court case kind of thing. And that concept really appealed to me, and they did that for a couple episodes, but then they kind of abandoned that and went back, because it had that magician guy and they had that immortal guy, and I wish they just should have just made it an episodic comedy show like that, but thrown in some continuous storyline, some character season-long arcs of character storylines that made the thrust of each episode that episodic comedy bit, and I would have loved that. But then they went off in other various directions, like She-Hulk going to trying dating apps, or going to this retreat or whatever. And yeah, god damn it. There was, yeah, so I think it was inconsistent. I don't think it was consistent. It was too mixed up, and I don't think it was nice and neat on what they wanted to do. And like they had this continuing story arc of the people trying to get her blood, and then that story arc just goes away in order to make the meta joke. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually loved the meta joke in the finale. I'm looking forward to seeing that again. I actually thought that was brilliant. But the problem is, it makes that whole running storyline throughout the season irrelevant. So don't do it as a running storyline then, because now, like, what was the point of having that shit if it just leads up to some ending that you're gonna scrap because it's stupid anyway and have her break the fourth wall instead? So why do that? I did like how they were making fun of all the misogynistic online groups that like to trash any female-led superhero project. And, of course, that angered them for the show. And all the people like, oh, why are you going to purposely piss off those people? But they're going to be pissed off anyway. They're going to say stupid shit about any female-led superhero project anyway, so why bother? I'm glad that they tackled them straight on. I thought that was fucking brilliant, personally. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and watch She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, just the last couple episodes, and I'll be back here to talk about it some more. So, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. I just watched the last two episodes, which I know is like barely, it's just a little bit over an hour because each episode was just a little bit over 30 minutes long. Um, so I was tempted to watch 3 episodes, but then when I looked at the episode list, the third to last episode was my least favorite episode of the season. The one where she goes to Emil or the Abomination or whatever you call him, his little yoga retreat or whatever you want to call it, his Zen camp. And I hated that episode. They introduced a lot of like minor superheroes that only, third rate or fourth rate comic book characters that no one except for extreme fans would have heard of, and I didn't care about that. That was my least favorite episode. I didn't like that, so I decided to just watch the last two. And like I normally do, that's my normal MO, even though these episodes were shorter. Well, so was What If, although I think the last two episodes of What If were a bit longer than their normal episodes anyway. So I kind of stand by what I said in the preamble, that it was a bit sort of inconsistent with the tone, that they should have just stuck with the usual format of like super stupid like superhero things for a trial. Now, the second to last episode did have that format with the rip it and rip it guy, and I remember when this show first came out, I said that was my favorite episode of the season. Now, I can't make that claim now because I didn't watch the entire season again, just those last 2 episodes. It was definitely my favorite of the 2 episodes, I will say. But this is the episode that, of course, featured Daredevil. And I think the whole episode was good, just not the fact that they had Daredevil in it, which was great. This is, we saw Daredevil in a cameo in No Way Home, and then this is the second time we see Daredevil in the MCU, although technically now his original show is considered the MCU, but that was just retconned a couple weeks ago. But anyway, so I'm still going to call it separate. Even though technically those are in the MCU now, they're technically considered part of Phase 2, although that hasn't been officially confirmed by Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige yet. This is just going off of what Disney Plus is showing, so who knows. But regardless of all that, so I'm still going to say this was his second appearance in the MCU. And then the next time we see him so far as of the recording of this video is another cameo in Echo. So yeah, we're still yet to see him in Daredevil Born Again. Now, I didn't mind that because this episode was a lot more sort of lighthearted than Daredevil's, so it had a very, very different tone, like a more comedic, more light tone, and he actually fit it quite well, and I would say it was actually impressive because he was totally in character, because he had that sort of sarcastic flair in the Daredevil show as well. So I did not think he was at all out of character. I think he was totally in character, except for maybe his new suit being a different color looked a bit cheesy. Other than that, totally in character, even though the tone of the show was very different. But I think I would say that's a praise. I would praise the writers for that they were able to keep the character the same and yet implant him into a show with a totally different tone. Now, that being said, I was worried that my worry was that the Daredevil Born Again would have this tone, this lighthearted tone, and be a mismatch with the rest of the Daredevil series, and that would bother me. But because of the fact that they revamped Daredevil Born Again, apparently started filming all over again, and the new team that are filming the revamped version say that they're trying to make it a continuation of the Netflix Daredevil series and have the same sort of feeling. They're even bringing back Foggy and what's her face now, which I think when I recorded my part 1 of MCU, I thought they weren't going to be in it, but then I read now they are going to be in it, or at least they don't know how long. Could just be cameos, but we don't know. At least they will be in it. And so, yeah, so I get the feeling that perhaps when this episode was made, it was their intention to make Daredevil Born Again more goofy and lighthearted like this episode, but I think that has rightfully been corrected. And so I'm fine with that. Like I said, this episode and Daredevil's appearance in it, I have no issue. And in fact, I do think it was a really good episode. The ribbit and rip it. And She-Hulk and Daredevil had really good chemistry. Now, this is what gets into the next thing. Another article I read today was that She-Hulk Season 2 is not going to happen, which is not surprising to me at all. And Tatiana Maslany cited the main reason for that is it was too expensive. And that makes total sense because it is very expensive to have your main character be a CGI character, and the fact that this show wasn't very well liked, it wasn't very well received by audiences or critics. Well, critics apparently kind of liked it, but audiences were very lukewarm on it, and it didn't do that well. So why would you make a very expensive show that's not well received? So that makes sense to me. But I do think we will see this character again. I hope we see this character again. In fact, I wouldn't mind seeing her again in Daredevil itself, actually. I think that would be interesting. But I don't think they will do that. But but I do think that we will see this character again. But it doesn't necessarily have to be her own show. And I love Tatiana Maslany in this role. I think she's really good. I just think the show itself was inconsistent. I would have loved to seen a sort of Harvey Birdman type thing, but it would just be too expensive to do like a show like that. Maybe they could make it animated. I don't know, save some money that way. But anyway, I forgot about the wedding episode. When I saw the previous Leon, I was reminded of the wedding episode, and that was really stupid. Now, one thing I was sort of disappointed I didn't get to watch again was the Madison, what was it? The two eyes, but it's not where you think. I love her. I would love to see her again. I thought she was hilarious. I think that might have been my favorite episode of the season. But anyway, I didn't watch that episode this time, but I do remember that being very good. But then there's other episodes like the wedding episode and these other episodes like her going to the Zen camp or whatever that I didn't really like that as much, and I didn't think the tone was consistent. And the other thing that I would note in watching these last two episodes is that I feel like the fourth wall breaking was not done as smoothly as, say, Deadpool. Like, when Deadpool broke the fourth wall, it felt natural. It felt like he was in character and it was part of the story, and it felt like it worked. Whereas when She-Hulk did it, it was a little bit jarring. Like, every time she did it, it was like, whoa, she's talking to me now? What's going on? Even though she had been doing it all season, it still felt jarring. And I don't know how to explain that. It's just a feeling. But when Deadpool did it, it felt like smooth. It felt like part of the movie. Whereas when she does it, it felt like poof, all of a sudden I'm being broken out of. And I did feel that way with that big fourth wall break in the finale. Although I do love it. I will say, I absolutely loved it. Even though she had been breaking the fourth wall all season, it still felt like every time she was turning the camera, it was like, you guys okay with this? You okay with this ending? I don't think this is a good ending for this episode. It felt wrong when she was saying that. But then when she actually did totally break the fourth wall, and they had the Disney Plus menu and she broke through one of the icons, that was awesome. I don't care what anyone said. I had arguments with people at my work about this. That was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Her going to the writer room and then confronting Kevin. Like, that with all the capitals. Like, that was, really, really well done. I kind of saved the finale for me. But there was an issue that was so contrived with the ending of the penultimate episode that led into the finale, with her going to the award ceremony and them sort of doxing her and showing her sex tape in public, and then her smashing the TV screens and just being a bit angry, and then everyone goes crazy and the police show up and think she's a monster. And then in the next episode they're all saying, oh, we're gonna put this bracelet on you to make it so you can't turn to She-Hulk ever again. You're getting fired for your job, and you're the public enemy #1. And I was like, that felt so stupid and fake and unrealistic and just not earned at all. Because first of all, she was doxxed and publicly humiliated. Nobody cared. And that was done for the purposes of the plot, obviously, so it was very extremely contrived. You can't just show someone's sex tape in public like that, and no one seemed to understand. Yeah, she could get a bit angry about that, and she didn't kill anyone, or she went after that one dude who was obviously one of the perpetrators. Now, I can maybe a little bit, just a tad bit, forgive the initial reaction of everyone running away and being scared of her, although I think that was overly exaggerated, and the police showing up and holding guns at her. I can maybe, if I'm super lenient and fair, I can buy that. But then the reaction with her, where nobody gives a shit about what just happened to her, and they're all like, oh, she's an evil monster, we need to control her. That is complete and utter and total bullshit. And so, what it is, and I've thought about this, what the best term for this is, it's cartoon logic. It's exactly cartoon logic. It's a kind of fast and loose logic they use in cartoons. It has no sense of realism or any kind of complex thought put into it at all. It's just nonsense to push the plot forward. And then in the ending, they do the reverse. So where after we come back from the fourth wall breaking, and the police show up and arrest the tech bro guy, who I'm pretty sure was supposed to be kind of a stand-in for Elon Musk. But anyway, they arrest him, and then everything's okay again. She can be She-Hulk again, and that anklet is now gone, and everyone's perfectly fine with her. Why? What did she do that undid her acting out and being angry? Why did that all of a sudden, okay, we can take your anklet off, and everything's all good with you because you arrested or you found the people who were doxing you or online harassing you? How does that make it better? I don't understand. Again, this is cartoon logic, but in the other direction, they totally hated her and thought she was the worst thing ever for stupid reasons, and now they're completely gonna forgive her and think she's perfectly fine for, again, no reasons whatsoever. So yeah, I can't remember what I gave this show originally, if I gave it an 8 or 7. I don't even know if I gave it anything, but my rating for She-Hulk Attorney at Law is a 7. I was actually closer to a 6, to be honest, in this one. Maybe that's because I didn't watch the Madison episode or the Mr. Immortal episode, which were good ones. But the Daredevil one with the Ribbit and Rip It or whatever, that was good. That was one of the best of the seasons, and that was one to watch. And it's just, even though that was a really good episode, they were too inconsistent with their character. It was too up and down. The season was too disjointed, and yeah. But there are a lot of good things in it. I didn't think it totally sucked the way a lot of people did. And as I said, I absolutely love them making fun of the online misogynists. I forgot, when they were at that party, they were even saying some of the stupid shit that, oh, I have no problem with the females. And I made a point to tell that dude who was on the cover, make sure to call them females and not makes me think of the Ferengi. And it would say shit. Oh, it's not that the superhero is a female that I have a problem with. If that superhero was male, I would feel the same way. And that's the exact shit that you hear on these forums from these misogynists. But anyway, it was perfect. But anyway, yeah. So good things about the show that I did like, but overall, it just didn't congeal. So we have now reached the stage where I'm up to the final movie in Phase 4, Wakanda Forever. So I gotta be honest, I liked the first Black Panther movie, but I wasn't as big of a fan of it as everyone else was. So I actually kind of like this sequel better. At least that's my memory of it. That I like the sequel better, um, and which apparently is like sacrilege for a lot of people. But it wasn't that I loved this movie so much. It was more of I didn't like the first one as much as everyone else did. And I just found, mainly I found the villain of, oh god, I can't remember his name, the sea guy. I found him and his backstory and like his people and everything, even though it was very fantastical, but the whole concept of Wakanda is very fantastical in the first place. Um, but yeah, I found him very interesting, frankly more interesting than Killmonger. Um, and I thought all the characters, particularly him, was very well thought out. I thought they were extremely respectful to Chadwick Boseman's passing, and I think they actually did a really good job of switching gears to Shuri, and I think she went through a really, really good character story. Now, again, the killing of the queen of her mother did feel kind of like killing off Aunt May, but I didn't have as big of a problem with it. But it still felt like kind of unnecessary for them. I mean, they already killed off Black Panther. Why they need to kill off her mother? That just felt like overboard. But then I guess it does feed into the fact that she's able to forgive Namor. That's his name, Namor. That she's able to forgive him, even though he was responsible for her mother's death, which made her an even better character. And the fact that they introduced in the very last scene T'Challa's son, I don't know, I guess. But anyway, regardless, I'm going to go ahead and watch Wakanda Forever and be back to give my feelings for that. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. So, that movie was a lot better than I remember it being. Well, maybe a lot better, overstating things, but it is better than I remember it being. Yeah, I thought what I said before about the Namor storyline, like really liking it, like I was really on board with it, and I'm really impressed because they started at least writing this movie in pre-production, I believe, when Chadwick Boseman died, and they had to completely reconfigure it to make it without him, and I thought they did a damn good job. I was super impressed with how it turned out, and I think, I mean, his absence was surely felt, absolutely, but I don't think it was like a deal breaker. It didn't ruin the movie. It's impressive how much they got you to care about the other characters around them. Although, to be fair, one of my complaints about the first Black Panther movie was that the Black Panther wasn't in it enough, and it felt like it was more a movie about Wakanda in general. So this time when they made a movie about Wakanda in general, it just slipped right in, because that's what it kind of felt like the first one was like anyway. And I guess Shuri was kind of the main character, but it could have easily been said that there wasn't really a main character. But I think she did feature the most, but it didn't feel like it was her movie in the same way it was T'Challa's movie previously. And yeah, I don't think I was that impressed with this Ironheart the first time I saw it. I think I was more okay with it this time. She did kind of feel like an afterthought or an add-on, but nothing like too serious. Certainly nothing worse than what Marvel has done before. But that does leave me wondering what they're going to do with Ironheart, because they're supposed to make a show about her, and apparently it's already been made. They're just holding it and they're not releasing it. And I've heard like 2025 for the release date, so that's very puzzling why they're not releasing it. It makes me think that they don't have much faith in it, or maybe they're just taking the heat of people who are saying that Marvel's oversaturated and they just want to hold some of their projects to give people a little break from it, which I think makes sense. But anywho, because yeah, they had a terrible year this past year. But anyway, yeah, I think I stand by the what I said about the Queen's death being kind of unnecessary. Although I do think it was powerful. I did kind of cry a little bit at that, and I love I love the underwater world with that Namor's world and the music they played with that. Like, I don't know, it's something, it's hard to put into words, but I could just feel like this movie had a higher quality than most of the other films in Phase 4, particularly, you know, films like Eternals or even though I like Shang-Chi, I would put that in the same category. And trying to think what else. What other movies? Oh, Love and Thunder, maybe, yeah. It just seemed to have like a higher quality that I feel like some people were thinking that most of the films in Phase 4 and 5 were missing. So yeah, Ryan Coogler is just a really good director. I think that's very clear because I was just hooked and engaged throughout most of the film. And I think I did actually buy the character journey of Shuri. Now, I thought when she like had that vision and you expected her to see, like, I expected her to see her mother, because they couldn't, you know, really do T'Challa unless they used like CGI, and that would be disrespectful, and I knew that they wouldn't do that. So I thought it would be her mother, but it was Killmonger, and I think that was actually a very interesting choice. And actually that was a brilliant, like, narratively it really worked, because it proved that her desire for revenge, to avenge her mother, was more like a Killmonger. And he was pointing that out. He's like, nah, you're like me. And pointing out, like, that other dude pointed out that's not what her mother would have wanted. And she's like, I don't care what she would have wanted. It was about what I want. But in the end, she realized that it was better. So she came to her senses, and then she actually did have the vision of her mother. Telling her to do the right thing, and she did, and I thought that was really powerful. So my rating for Black Panther Wakanda Forever is an 8. Extremely good. It's a very, very strong 8. In fact, I was tempted to give this movie a 9 because I really, really liked it, but I don't think it's quite there to the level of a 9. But yeah, it's close. It was a really strong film. I really enjoyed it, like more than I remember enjoying it. So that is it. Those are all the projects, the films and shows from Phase 4. So I'm going to do a thing now. Rather than doing a separate video for this, because I considered maybe doing a separate video for this, but you know, I don't really want to. I don't really have the time or the inclination. And plus, people will just come in and they're really going to hate my rankings. But anyway, what am I going to do is rank all of the projects that I just watched from Phase 4 of the MCU in order of from my least favorite to my favorite. Now, eventually, I think once Phase 5 is done, I'm going to redo like the entire MCU and add in Phase 4 and 5, because I already did it for the first 3 phases. But and I'm not going to include the Netflix shows or the I Am Groot stuff or Werewolf by Now. I'm sorry, those are still going to be excluded. But anyway, so I'll do that later whenever Phase 5 is finished. But for now, I'm just going to rank all the Phase 4 stuff, because why not? I just watched it. I feel like it should have building for something. But anyway, so I'm not going to spend too much time going through each project, because I already did that in this video and the previous video. So I'm just going to quickly go through my top 15, because there are 15 projects in Phase 4 that I'm considering anyway. So number 15, my least favorite, is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Number 14 is Black Widow. Number 13 is Eternals. It should be The Eternals, but whatever. Number 12 is Miss Marvel. Number 11 is Hawkeye. Number 10 is She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Number 9 is Thor, Love and Thunder. Number 8 is Spider-Man, No Way Home. Number 7 is Moon Knight. Number 6 is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Number 5 is What If Season 1. Number 4 is Loki. Number 3 is Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Number 2 is WandaVision. And number 1 is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So yeah, Multiverse of Madness, my favorite project of the Phase 4. I don't care what others say. I really loved it. Although I will say it was really, really, really close between Doctor Strange and WandaVision. I was going back and forth. Both were the projects with Wanda in it. I guess I really liked her. But I was going back and forth between them, trying to figure out which one I want to put as my number one. Because they were both neck and neck. But what clinched it for me is the over-the-top, typical ending of WandaVision, and the fact that the head of S.W.O.R.D. was such a two-dimensional mustache-twirly villain who tried to kill children. And so it's a minor thing because I still love WandaVision, but it was enough to push Multiverse of Madness into my number one spot because it was a hard choice. And as you notice, Wakanda Forever was my number 3. As I said, a very strong 8. I was really impressed with that film. Now, if you notice, if you saw my part 1, I originally gave What If a 9 out of 10, which actually would have pushed that to at least number 3, but I changed my mind. I think I was being too generous by giving it a 9 out of 10. It actually should have gotten an 8, especially after seeing What If Season 2, which was definitely better, and that I gave a 9 out of 10. So in retrospect, it seemed like a 9 for Season 1 was too high, and also comparing it to other things I gave 9 to, like Multiverse of Madness, WandaVision, and that if I'm giving Wakanda Forever an 8, then I need to give What If at least. I can't give it more than an 8 because I think I would definitely say I liked Wakanda Forever better than What If, so I reduced that rating to an 8, even though in my video, if you watch it, it still says 9, but I reduced that to an 8. Spider-Man No Way Home, despite the fact I think is overrated, still reaches number 8, but then again, most people will think, oh my god, number 8, it should easily be number 1. Well, I disagree. I put Moon Knight and Shang-Chi and What If higher than it, which I'm sure many people's heads would explode about that, but anyway, it was close between No Way Home and Love and Thunder. Those were neck and neck, and I gave No Way Home the slight edge over Love and Thunder because of the screaming goats. And then some people might think that She-Hulk was too high because it's number 10. I had it higher than Hawkeye, Miss Marvel, Eternals, Black Widow. But yeah, even though it was disjointed, I liked the character of She-Hulk, and I thought it was pretty funny. So I did like it better than those shows. Those other shows and films were too disjointed. And Falcon and Winter Soldier, easily my least, very easily, especially after rewatching those last 2 episodes, very easily my least favorite. In fact, I would probably call it my least favorite project of the entire MCU if it wasn't for the fact that Secret Invasion exists. But anyway, of Phase 4, that's not in Phase 4, so of Phase 4, Falcon and Winter Soldier is my least favorite. Anyway, so that is it. That is it. I am now done covering Phase 4 of the MCU. If you watch both of these videos, I thank you so much for watching these super ass long videos as I talked about Marvel MCU. Now, I have plenty of other videos on my channels that cover the Marvel projects as they're released. I just covered Echo not that long ago and What If Season 2. Did a couple videos about that, including a live stream. And I will continue to cover, Marvel, the MCU. Maybe not every single project, because there's something that I'm not really that keen on or didn't really like that much. I probably won't cover it, but maybe I will. I don't know. I'll see. Just see how we feel. But I will be back to do the same thing for Phase 5 about a year after Phase 5 finishes. Just like I waited a year to cover Phase 4, I'll do the same for Phase 5. So yeah, we'll have that to look forward to. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to check out my channel as I continue to cover many shows, many movies, particularly covering Star Trek most of the time, in the middle of covering Season 3 of The Next Generation. So you can check out my channel for that and many more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.